Okay, so are you ready to dive deep? Today we're tackling strategy itself, and you've given us an amazing mix of sources. Like we've got Sun Tzu, we've got Napoleon, there's even some Machiavelli in the mix.
It really is a fascinating combination of strategists and thinkers throughout history.
Right, it's kind of a powerhouse lineup.
It is, it is. And, the fascinating thing is what ties it all together is this idea that strategy is as much about psychology as it is about brute force.
Oh, I like that.
It's about understanding the human element of conflict.
So this isn't about me becoming a military mastermind overnight?
Not exactly, no.
Although that would be kind of handy in rush hour traffic.
Right.
I could use some of that.
That's a different deep dive for a different day.
Okay.
But what we're really trying to do here is extract those timeless principles that
Sure.
apply whether you're facing a tough negotiation or vying for a promotion or even just trying to, get your point across in a meeting.
I am here for all of that. That's good stuff.
Exactly.
So where do we even begin with something this massive? This is huge.
This is Some Books, the new generation podcast. Don't forget to subscribe.
Well, one common thread that we see again and again is the power of perception and how master strategists throughout history have sort of warped it to their advantage.
Oh, that's good. That's really good. Because I think we can all relate to that, even in our own lives, how much of it is perception versus reality, right?
Absolutely.
It's like that old saying, it's all smoke and mirrors. But how do you actually use that? What's a concrete example of somebody actually putting that into play?
Well, let's take Themistocles, for example. During the Persian Wars,
Okay.
he completely outsmarted Xerxes, the Persian emperor, by essentially playing into Xerxes' desire for this quick, decisive victory.
Oh, well.
He fed him false information, led to a crushing defeat for the Persians.
Okay, that's kind of brilliant and kind of mean at the same time, you know?
Sure.
But it makes me think about D-Day. Weren't the Allies masters of deception when it came to that?
Oh, absolutely. The sheer scale of the deception leading up to D-Day was incredible.
Right.
The Allies exploited Hitler's paranoia. They led him to believe that the invasion was going to land at Calais, not Normandy.
Right.
They literally manipulated his reality.
So it's about playing into existing biases.
Absolutely.
That's kind of a scary thought when you think about it. How much of what we perceive is shaped by others?
That's right. That's right. And that's where it gets even more interesting because it's not even always about, what is, but what people think is.
Okay.
Think about passive aggression, for example.
Yeah.
It disarms you. Because it blends compliance with hostility, you're never quite sure what the other person's true intentions are.
Wow, that's like psychological camouflage.
That's a great way to put it.
You think you're seeing one thing, but the reality is totally different.
Exactly.
Okay, this is blowing my mind a little bit.
Well, good. That's what we're here for.
What else? What else did these masters of strategy reveal?
Let's talk about indirect action.
Okay.
This is the idea that sometimes not acting or even appearing weaker than you are can be the most strategic move.
Seriously. Now that sounds counterintuitive. How do you win by not acting?
Well, think about it this way. It's about playing the long game. It's about psychological warfare. T.E. Lawrence of Arabia, he talked about this in the context of guerrilla warfare.
Okay.
He said it was a war of detachment, where the real battleground was the enemy's mind.
So instead of a head-on attack, you're sort of chipping away at their resolve, their morale. It's like that whole death by 1,000 cuts, except it's more like defeat by 1,000 uncertainties.
You got it, exactly.
Yeah.
And this principle goes way beyond the battlefield, right?
Mm.
Think about a tough negotiation, for example. Sometimes appearing less eager, even a little vulnerable, can shift the balance of power in your favor.
Because then the other side might underestimate you.
Exactly.
They let their guard down thinking they've got the upper hand, and bam, you hit them with the unexpected.
Exactly. And, strategy isn't always about brute force.
Oh, that's good.
Sometimes it's about being underestimated, about working from the shadows, right?
Hmm.
Remember Machiavelli? He emphasized the importance of gathering intel, of having your ear to the ground.
Right.
There's power in knowing what's happening behind the scenes, in anticipating your opponent's moves before they even make them.
Like a strategic spy. That's what that makes me think of.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm starting to see the common thread here. It's about being adaptable, about using psychology and information to your advantage.
Absolutely.
This is making me rethink my whole approach to conflict.
Good.
What else is there?
Oh, we've got more. Don't worry. We're just getting started. Lots more to uncover.
Okay, good.
You're catching on quickly, though. I'll give you that. And this leads us to another fascinating thread that kind of runs through all these sources. And it's this concept of shh. It's a term that Sun Tzu uses.
Shh.
Yeah.
Okay, that one sounds a little intimidating.
It sounds more complicated than it is.
Break it down for me. What is that?
It's essentially about positioning, about
Yeah.
putting yourself in a situation where you have multiple options,
Okay.
while your opponent has very few, and all of them are bad.
So it's like you're setting up the chessboard so that no matter what move they make, you're already a few steps ahead.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, it's about shaping the battlefield itself.
Wow.
So that victory becomes almost inevitable.
Oh.
And we see this, Napoleon, for instance, was a master of sure.
Okay.
He would study the terrain, he would anticipate enemy movements, and he would position his forces in such a way that he'd have the advantage before the battle even began.
So it's not just about being sneaky or manipulative, it's about strategic planning,
Absolutely.
about putting yourself in the best possible position to succeed.
Exactly.
Which actually, that's kind of empowering when you think about it.
It is. It is.
It's like you're taking control of the situation instead of just reacting to it.
Exactly. And this ties into another really crucial element of strategy that often gets overlooked.
Which is morale.
Oh, right. Because what good is a brilliant plan if your troops or your team have zero motivation to see it through?
Mm.
Exactly. And in fact, the 33 Strategies of War talks about essentially transforming your war into a crusade, right? It's about, motivating people by getting them to think less about themselves and more about the group, the larger mission.
It's like that old saying, there's no I in team, but how do you actually do that? How do you get people to buy into something bigger than themselves?
Well, the book gives this really fascinating example of Julius Caesar
Okay.
facing a mutiny.
Oh, boy.
His soldiers are, they're demanded to be discharged, they're ready to walk.
Yeah.
And instead of punishing them or arguing with them, what Caesar does is he simply addresses them as citizens, not soldiers.
Wow.
And that small shift in language
Right.
completely changes the dynamic.
Because suddenly it's not about taking orders.
Exactly.
It's about their duty to Rome, to something bigger than themselves.
You got it. That's exactly it. And this isn't just ancient history, right? This is relevant to leading a team at work. This is relevant to mobilizing people around a cause you believe in. People need that sense of purpose.
It's like finding that emotional hook, that thing that resonates with people.
Exactly.
So you're not just giving orders, you're inspiring them, which I think kind of leads us into leadership then too, right?
It does. It does. We can't talk about strategy without talking about leadership.
Right.
And one of the most fascinating examples I came across was General George Marshall, who transformed the U.S. Army before World War II.
Okay, I'm all ears.
So what made him so effective?
Yeah, was it just about giving those rousing speeches?
It was more subtle than that. He understood that in a complex organization like the Army,
Right.
you can't micromanage everything. You just can't. So he built this incredibly strong team of deputies. He gave them clear direction, and then he empowered them to make decisions independently.
So it was less about control and more about creating a shared vision and then trusting his team to execute it.
You got it. He streamlined processes. He cut through bureaucracy. He fostered this culture of efficiency and shared purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a leadership model that is still so relevant today.
Right. Makes you wonder if some of those micromanaging bosses out there have, read their Sun Tzu.
Right.
Maybe that should be required reading in the break room.
I think so.
Little Sun Tzu in the break room.
It's a good reminder that sometimes the most effective way to lead is by empowering others,
Yeah,
not by controlling them.
that's good.
And this actually connects to another point that's made in several of our sources, the danger of centralizing power.
Yes, because power can be intoxicating.
It can be.
But it sounds like our strategic gurus are saying it can also be a trap.
Oh, it definitely can be a trap. Machiavelli, for example, he was wary of leaders who craved love above all else.
Interesting.
He said, while it's good to be loved, it's better to be both feared and respected.
Ooh, that's a tough balance.
It is.
Because how do you do that?
It's about finding that balance. That's exactly right.
Right, between being firm but fair, not just like a tyrant.
Exactly.
Oh, that's tricky.
It is.
It's like that saying, it's lonely at the top. But seriously, that balance of power sounds incredibly difficult to maintain.
It is.
I mean, didn't Margaret Thatcher, the Iron Lady herself, struggle with that?
She did. Thatcher was a master of what some people call the polarity strategy.
Okay.
She used her enemies,
What?
her critics, to actually define her own position and to rally her supporters.
Interesting.
It's a high-risk, high-reward strategy,
Yeah.
but it can be incredibly effective when it's used well.
So it's about understanding that conflict can actually be useful.
It can be. It can
and
be.
energizing if you know how to channel it.
Exactly.
Like, I never thought of it that way, but that's really interesting.
It is. It is.
This is giving me a whole new perspective on how power dynamics work. This is good stuff.
Well, good. Good. I'm glad to hear it. And, that brings us to another really crucial aspect of strategy that we haven't really touched on yet.
Which is,
The power of narrative.
oh, interesting. Okay, so we're talking about storytelling now.
Yeah, essentially.
What does that have to do with strategy? Everything, seemingly.
It has everything to do with strategy because in any kind of conflict, the side that can tell the most compelling story often wins. Think about the Trojan horse, for example.
Okay.
It wasn't just a clever trick.
Right.
It was a story,
Oh.
a narrative that the Greeks used to manipulate the Trojans.
Oh, okay, I see what you mean. Yeah, they tapped into the Trojans' desire for glory, their pride, and they essentially crafted this irresistible narrative that led to their downfall.
That's exactly it.
It was a story that played to their deepest desires and ultimately blinded them to the truth.
Exactly. And you see this throughout history.
Right.
Leaders using storytelling to shape perception, to demonize their enemies, to inspire their followers. It's about controlling the narrative.
It's like you're creating their reality for them in a way.
In a way, yeah.
Which is both fascinating and a little bit terrifying when you really think about it.
It can be. It can be.
But it makes me wonder, in a world where we're constantly bombarded with information, how do we even know what's real anymore?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
And it's something that our sources grapple with as well.
Yeah.
Remember that line from the 33 Strategies of War? Abundance makes me poor.
Right. Having so much information that it becomes a burden.
Exactly.
It's overwhelming. It's almost paralyzing.
Exactly. And in that kind of environment,
Right.
discernment becomes the ultimate strategic advantage.
Oh, I like that.
The ability to filter out the noise,
Right.
to identify the truth. That's what separates the strategic thinkers from those who are easily manipulated.
So it's not just about consuming information, but it's about being critical of it.
Yes.
About asking yourself, who benefits from me believing this? Or, things like that.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's a skill that's more important now than ever.
I bet.
Because the battlefield has shifted.
Right.
It's not just about armies and physical territory anymore.
It's about ideas.
It's about ideas. It's about narratives.
About shaping public opinion. Right.
Exactly.
Oh, it's like we're all living in a giant game of 4D chess now.
Right.
Except the rules are constantly changing and nobody knows who's playing against whom.
That's a great way to put it. That's a great way to put it. And in that kind of environment,
Yeah.
the ability to think strategically, to adapt to new information, to see through deception,
Yeah.
that's what gives you the edge.
Right.
It's about being a step ahead, anticipating your opponent's next move,
Wow.
and ultimately crafting a narrative that serves your own goals.
This whole deep dive has been like a masterclass in strategic thinking. I feel like I've leveled up my brain. But for our listener who might be feeling a little overwhelmed by all of this, like it's a lot, what's the one thing they should take away from all of this? So we've been on this incredible journey through the world of strategy, right?
We have.
From ancient battlefields to modern boardrooms. It's amazing.
It is pretty amazing how these principles, they transcend time and space.
They do. It's like these timeless principles, these almost universal laws of conflict and competition. But there's got to be more, right? Like we've uncovered all this stuff. What's the final piece of the puzzle?
It's interesting. We've talked about the importance of knowing your enemy, right?
Right.
Understanding the psychological battleground.
Yeah.
But there's one insight that kind of echoes through all of our sources, from Sun Tzu to Machiavelli.
Okay.
And the ultimate victory, it isn't about crushing your opponent.
Okay.
It's about bending them to your will,
Whoa.
turning them into essentially an unwitting ally.
Okay, hold on. That's a next level power move. So instead of defeating your enemy,
We co-opt them.
you make them, want to join your side?
Exactly.
How is that even possible?
Well, think about Lyndon B. Johnson.
Okay.
He was notorious for turning political rivals into staunch allies.
Really?
Not through force,
Okay.
but through this incredibly shrewd mix of, charm,
Okay.
a little bit of intimidation,
Mm-hmm.
and very strategic favors.
Wow.
He understood that true mastery wasn't just about winning over your opponent. It was about converting them into an asset.
It's like that, that moment in like a movie where the villain like offers the hero a chance to join them.
Exactly.
Except in Lyndon B. Johnson's case, it sounds like it actually worked.
It did. He was very good at it.
Yeah. But how do you do that? That takes some serious manipulation skills.
It does. It does require a deep understanding of human psychology and an ability to apply it strategically.
Yeah.
Remember those excerpts we talked about from the 33 Strategies of War?
Right.
They emphasize how easily people can be swayed by appearances, by their emotions, by their own desires.
Totally.
A master strategist uses this to their advantage.
Yeah, and it's not even always like a bad thing, right? Like we were talking about earlier, think about the story of the Trojan horse.
No, perfect example.
It wasn't that the Greeks just tricked the Trojans. It's that they appealed to their pride, their longing for, a glorious victory.
Absolutely.
They made the Trojans want to believe the horse was a gift, which blinded them to the danger. You see what I mean?
It's brilliant. It really is. Because they essentially disarmed themselves
They did.
by wanting to believe the story.
Exactly. And that story, as ancient as it is, it highlights something incredibly relevant to, like, today's world.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Because it's about the power of narrative, of crafting a story so compelling that your opponent, they can't help but be drawn in.
And we see this everywhere.
Right.
I mean, think about advertising.
Oh, good point.
Think about politics.
It's all narratives.
It's all narratives. It's all storytelling.
It's like you're almost creating their reality for them in a way.
In a way you are. And that's what makes it so powerful, but also, like you said, a little bit frightening.
Yeah, because it does make you wonder, in a world where we are constantly bombarded with information, how do we even know what's real anymore?
That's the million-dollar question, and I wish I had a really easy answer for you, but I don't.
I know, me too.
But one thing that our sources emphasize again and again is this need for discernment.
Okay.
That's really what it comes down to.
Discernment. So, like, what do you mean by that?
Well, remember that line from the 33 Strategies of War? Abundance makes me poor.
Oh, right, because we're talking about information.
We are. It's about having so much information coming at you from all sides.
Yeah, it's
It
overwhelming.
becomes impossible to process it all.
Right.
And so in that kind of environment, discernment becomes the ultimate strategic advantage.
Okay, so it's about filtering out the noise,
Exactly.
identifying the truth.
The signal through the noise.
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to.
And how do you do that? Because it's so hard.
It's incredibly difficult, I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah, how do you even begin to do that in today's world?
Well, you have to be willing to question everything.
Everything. Like, what do you mean?
Question your assumptions.
Okay.
Question your own biases.
Ooh, your own biases. So you're almost being, like, skeptical of yourself in a way?
In a way, yes, because we all have biases. We all have these preconceived notions that shape how we see the world.
Right, no, totally.
And so a good strategist, a discerning mind,
Yeah.
is constantly challenging those biases, looking for those blind spots.
So you're not just accepting things at face value, you're digging a little deeper.
Exactly.
You're looking for those hidden agendas. You're trying to figure out, like, okay, what's really going on here? What am I not seeing?
Exactly. And, this might sound a little strange,
Sure.
but a little bit of paranoia can actually be helpful in this regard.
What? Hold on a second. Are you advocating for paranoia now?
Not the debilitating kind, of course,
Okay.
not the kind that keeps you up at night,
Okay, good.
but a healthy dose of skepticism, a willingness to question motives,
Yeah.
to dig a little deeper,
Okay.
that can be incredibly valuable.
Okay, I see what you mean.
It's about being aware of the psychological games that people play,
Right.
the ways that they try to manipulate our perceptions.
It's like that saying, trust but verify.
Exactly.
You're not necessarily assuming everyone is out to get you,
Right.
but you're also not blindly accepting everything you're told.
100%. And that awareness, that ability to see through deception,
Yeah.
it's crucial in any kind of conflict, whether it's a business negotiation, a political debate, or even just a disagreement with a friend.
This whole deep dive, it's like you've given me X-ray vision for human behavior, which is a little scary.
It's a little scary, but it's also empowering.
It is empowering. It's incredibly empowering because it's like you're starting to understand, okay, these are the rules of the game.
Exactly.
And once you know the rules,
You can start playing to win.
you can start playing to win. Exactly.
Exactly. And that's what all of this comes down to.
Yeah, this has been amazing, but I think if there's one thing our listeners should take away from all of this, from everything that we've talked about today, it's that strategy. It's not this passive thing.
It's not a spectator sport.
No.
You can't just read a book and expect it to magically change your life.
Right.
It requires active engagement.
Mm-hmm.
It requires critical thinking and a willingness to constantly adapt and evolve.
So it's a practice. It's something you have to cultivate.
Absolutely. And, more than anything,
Yeah.
it's about being a student of human nature.
Oh, that's good.
It's about understanding the motivations,
Yeah.
the desires, the fears that drive us all.
Because in the end,
Yes.
the greatest strategic victories, they're not won on a battlefield.
They're one in the hearts and minds
See
of
there.
the people around us.
Wow. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of strategy, this is like, I don't know about you, but this was a workout.
It was a good one, though.
It was a really good one. But remember, the world, it's a complex place.
That is.
It's an ever-changing game, right? But by understanding these timeless principles
Yes.
of strategy, by sharpening our minds and honing our instincts, we can navigate those complexities with confidence.
Absolutely.
We can achieve our goals and ultimately become like the architects of our own destiny.
I love that. The architects of our own destiny.
That's what it's all about, right? Taking control of the narrative, shaping our own future.
Exactly. And, who knows, maybe even inspiring a few unwitting allies along the way.
Ooh, a little sneak attack at the end.
A little bit of strategy never hurt anyone.
That's right. That's right. Well, on that note, until next time, keep strategizing, keep learning, keep growing.
And keep those minds sharp.
Absolutely. We'll see you in the next deep dive.